The recent nuclear crisis in Japan has been compared to the accident that occurred 25 years ago this week at the Soviet nuclear reactor in Chernobyl, near Kiev, in the present-day Ukraine. And as with the current crisis, meteorology played a pivotal role at Chernobyl, a link that began as a detective story 800 miles away at a different nuclear facility in Sweden on the Baltic Sea. As workers arrived at the Forsmark nuclear plant on April 28, 1986, sensors detected unusually high levels of radioactivity, prompting evacuation and a search for a leak in the reactor. Finding none, officials realized that workers brought the radioactive particles into the plant on their clothing, indicating that something had gone terribly wrong elsewhere. And within hours, Swedish meteorologists, by collecting air samples over the Baltic Sea and tracing back the winds, had identified the likely source of the radioactivity as the nuclear reactor at Chernobyl, even before Soviet authorities had acknowledged the disaster, which started more than 2 days earlier when a steam explosion tore apart the concrete housing of the reactor, blowing the 1,000-ton safety cover off its top and spewing radioactive particles high into the night sky. The dominant feature on the weather map at the time of the explosion was high pressure over western Russia, which favored southeast surface winds in the vicinity of Chernobyl. So low-level radioactivity was first sent on a northwest trajectory. Some of the radioactive particles from the explosion were thrown about 2 kilometers up. Winds at that altitude were similar, also favoring the transport of radioactivity to the north and northwest, across Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, the Baltic Sea, eventually to those sensors in Sweden. Now, Chernobyl sits at 51 degrees latitude, well within the latitude band where traveling highs and lows bring shifting winds every few days. And indeed, in the days after the explosion, some radioactivity moved west into Germany, France, northern Italy, and even the United Kingdom. More than a week after the meltdown, hot radioactive gases were still escaping and traveling south over Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, and eventually across the Black Sea into Turkey. Though you can't see radioactive particles on a visible satellite image, you can, on rare occasions, see their effects. Check out this image from May 2nd, 1986. Chernobyl is labeled just to the north of Kiev and just to the west of the comma-shaped cloud marking a storm. Now, let's close in. Do you see that dark streak extending southeastward from Chernobyl? That's where the hot radioactive gases evaporated the clouds, producing a swath of clear skies called a nuclear disk trail, sort of the opposite of a contrail, which is a cloudy swath surrounded by clear skies. To my knowledge, this is the only nuclear disk trail ever photographed. I did not see this type of fingerprint in the atmosphere associated with the recent Fukushima nuclear incident. Fred is back with the extended forecast next.